Okay, in this video, what we're going to do is take a few minutes and talk about a concept known as whitespace. Now, whitespace is not some sort of technical programming thing. Nope. It is just simply the formatting of your code so that anyone coming in behind you, or perhaps even yourself, can read your code with ease. Right now we're looking at a part of the Hyperion project, and we're dealing with several things. We're dealing with a namespace, we're dealing with a class, we're dealing with a method and a loop, and all of these different things have pieces of code that belong to it. What I mean by that is the namespace has a bunch of code that belongs to it, the class has code that belongs to it, etc., etc. Now, if our code was not formatted properly, it would be very difficult to quickly tell what code belonged to what set of blocking braces. And remember, the blocking braces were our opening and closing curly braces. Now, I'm sure everybody has stumbled on code, perhaps on the internet, perhaps you've done it yourself, where the code was not formatted. This is just not good. There's nothing worse than coming in behind another programmer and trying to make sense of what they've done, but having absolutely no clue because nothing has been formatted properly. Now, why are we able to do this simple type of formatting? Simple. Our C# compiler does not care about spaces. It does not care about new lines. We can put as many new lines or as many spaces as we'd like into our code. Now, there are a few exceptions, and we'll be approaching those exceptions as we progress through this course. But for now, just know that we can use these spaces, or we can hit the tab key to inject a bunch of spaces, just to keep things formatted. That is the goal. Wouldn't you say formatting is pretty important, Logan?
It is, because code will become very unreadable very quickly if you don't use some kind of formatting, especially in cases where in one code file you have almost like different levels. You have cases where statements belong to methods, and then methods belong to classes.
Exactly.
And you need to be able to visually indicate that belonging somehow.
I agree. Right now, looking at this piece of Hyperion, we're looking at the program class. What I'd like for you to do, Logan, is unformat everything.
And I'm not even going to completely unformat. I'm just going to take all of the tabbing out. So we can back some of this up, and we would end up with a result that looks like that.
Okay. Wow. A minute ago, I could have told you everything that was in class, and I could have told you everything that was in the main method, and I could have told you what was within the loop. Now, looking at this code, I've got to stop and think for a second. And this is not a lot of code. I mean, and I have to stop and think. So please try to get into the habit of formatting your code. That is the most important thing that I'm trying to get across in this video. It is so critically important. So, Logan, as a matter of fact, scroll down a little bit. Show them all of those closing parentheses. Look at that. What closing parenthesis belongs to what piece of code? Ugh. So go ahead and format this back real quick, and then we'll talk about how the formatting is laid out.
Okay. To fix this, I'm going to grab everything inside of the namespace. We'll tab that.
So he just selects it and simply hits the tab key, and that's going to push everything out.
And we'll select all of the class itself. Tab that in.
That was a little bit too far of tabbing, so you'll shift tab that back.
And making sense, or just...
See, that's a great example. I'm glad you did that. When something's unformatted and try to go in there and format it, it's confusing. There we go. There we go. Ah, beautiful. So, how do we know this is formatted? Well, the first key thing that I'd like to point out here is we have these blocking braces. So if I was just to come in here real quick and say we have this guy, and then way down here we've got this guy. So everything that is indented inside of those two curly braces, opening and closing curly brace, belongs to what? Well, the piece of code that's right before the blocking brace begins. In this case, we're simply looking at namespace Hyperion. So everything inside those blocking braces belong to the namespace Hyperion. Now we indent in. Okay, so we've indented. Now we've got a class, and the class is program. And then we have an opening curly brace. And you'll notice that inside that, if I was to just do this, draw a straight line, look how quick and easy, all the way down, and then over here, look how quick and easy I can show you. Hang on, let me finish that one more time. There we go. What belongs to the curly braces? As a matter of fact, there we go. That was just being difficult on me. So everything that's been pushed in right there belongs in those blocking braces. It belongs to the class program. So I can quickly visually see what belongs to it. So easy. Now, as we come down, we've got our public static bool quit, and then up underneath that, we've got the static void main method, and then again, an open curly brace. So again, if I was to come over here and draw this out, you can see that right here, if we come over, and then down, and then back over, everything that's been pushed over belongs to main. So watch this. Just real quick here, we can say everything within this that's been pushed over belongs up here to class. And then down here in this section, if I just come over here and grab this, all of this belongs up here to our main method. Now we have another set of curly braces and more indented code. Well, that's because we have a loop and we have some code that belongs to that loop. This is the code that gets ran over and over and over until we quit. So again, same thing right here. If I just come over here and say, from there down to here, all code inside the open and closing curly brace belongs to the while statement. So you can see how we've pushed all of this code over. It makes it so much easier to quickly identify where code belongs to. So if I was to clear this out real fast, and let's just pick on something. Let's come over here to room. We scroll down through. Well, even before we start scrolling down, look at this, just employing what we've just learned. So here we've got an open, come down, closing. That means that this code right here belongs to that property right there. Let's see, what else do we have? Coming down, coming down, coming down. Oh, some good stuff here. Look at this. So let's work our way out. As a second ago, Logan mentioned that it's kind of like levels. Well, let's treat it like levels right now. So if I come over here, again, we've got some indented code. So if I do this, this code that's inside the open and closing curly brace belongs to our for each right there. And then, of course, we've got all of this code that belongs to the if. We have this code right here that belongs to the else. Hopefully you guys are starting to see how this works. And now, what's really cool is all of this stuff in here, you can see that we actually have nested code. So it's like one level deeper, another level deeper. By having these open and closing curly braces and then tabbing our code over that's inside them, it makes it very easy for us to read the code. Let's continue playing. Is that all right with you, Logan?
Sure.
Just driving these points home. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is good stuff here. So here we are with the get exit list. And here we go again. So we start all the way down. So all of this code right here, all the way down to there, if I can try to do this without actually selecting anything. So all the way down and over, all of this code belongs to get exit list. Now inside the code, it gets a little bit more subdivided. So we drop down more levels. And here we can see that we have another if. So with this guy right here, same thing. So we have this section right here, and it's going to belong to the if right here. We have this section down here, and it's going to belong to the else right here. Simple enough. But all of this code belongs to the get exit list. Okay? Let's see. Who else can we pick on? Got to find somebody to pick on. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Just have to. Lots of stuff. Let's start all the way inside. Here's a great one. Notice how this guy right here is indented, but he has no open and closing curly brace. Why not? Well, when we get into the if statement a little bit later, you're going to learn quickly that certain statements have the ability to work on one line or a block of lines. And in this case, we're only using one line. So in our if statement right here, we're saying if this particular object is equal to level.rooms sub x and y, then we're going to simply return this information back. So that's all we're going to do if this if statement evaluates to true. We only needed to do one line, so we did not need to have an open and a closing curly brace. But we still indented the code for readability. Again, I can real quickly tell you that this code right here belongs to this if. How simple is that? And all of this code, the if statement, and if it's true, the statement that's evaluated, it belongs up here to the 4. Okay? And, again, we have this whole section of code right in here. So all of both the for and the if belong to this guy. And all the way down to here, all of this belongs up here. Wow. Okay? Very, very important concept. And this is just formatting our code. It's so helpful. It really is, because if we wanted to, we could simply say, all right, well, I'm looking at this guy right here. What all code belongs in him? Now, fortunately for us, if we simply select right there, I can come over here and scroll up, and I can see that, that was the ending for our class room. Okay, simple enough. But again, it's a matter of all of the code. So just kind of keep your eye as we walk our way down right here. Keep an eye how all of this code is indented. So it's all indented. It's formatted nicely. Please, viewers, make sure, if you have not yet been indenting like we have, as you've been following us as we've been putting the Hyperion project together and the Simple Windows app together, please start doing it now. It is so important.
It's also not hard to format in this manner, because Visual Studio will actually attempt to help you. If you open a curly brace block, it will tab over when you hit enter to move into that block. So
it will
generally try to help you and almost format stuff for you as you're typing.
Now, in this case, we've been talking about Whitespace in regards to just indenting things so that we can see where sections of code belongs within blocking braces, so that we can see what that code belongs to. But we're not limited to just that. Like I said, we can go in there and, well, first of all, as an example, let's go back over to Program, Logan.
Okay.
Just before I move away from the spaces, we can come in here and we can go up to where you got public static bool, and then right after the word bool, hit space, 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 space. All right, there's a whole bunch of spaces. Is this going to make the compiler mad when Logan attempts to compile? Well, he just compiled. There are no errors. The compiler simply ignored all of these spaces. So again, it is just a demonstration of how we can space things out. Now, does this make things easy to read? In this particular case, no. But you may be setting up a series of variables and you want everything to line up, the actual variable names. Well, you might want to do something like this. More so with tabs than with spaces, because tabs are going to help you get lined up a lot better. But you get the idea. Go ahead and back that back up, Logan. And now let's talk about using new lines to format things as well. So if you want to maybe head over to text utils, I think there's a good place in there to pick on. Sometimes you may end up with lines that get really long, and then you have to end up scrolling to see from the beginning all the way to the end. Well, once again, we can use Whitespace, in this case, a new line, to help kind of keep things very manageable and format it for us. So in this particular case, if you wanted to, you can go right there where line begins and go ahead and hit enter. So now we have two parameters for the line.substring. We have, if I was to jump in there real quick, we have got, that's a parameter, and then up underneath that we've got this as a parameter. Okay. Notice how Logan used a new line right here, so that we started up under here, but he kept it formatted. He pushed this all in so that it is lined up with the first parameter. So you'll notice these two parameters are lined up now. Very easy to read. Just another good thing to keep in mind. If you end up with a piece of code that's so long, you're going to force somebody to scroll, 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 scroll. Don't do that. Simply put a carriage return in there and line them up like this. Now, does that mean that you can go anywhere you want and just hit enter? Logan, back this back up. And if you wanted to, like, let's say go to the dot. So line, even right there. I was going to say go to line dot length. So
up to the,
over to the parameter number 2. And then, and then now hit enter. And now tab that over a few. And compile. And that's going to actually work out good for us too. Believe it or not, in this particular case, I'm kind of surprised. I actually expected it to be unhappy about that. So still some surprises here and there on how friendly the C# compiler is. But I can give you a very quick, good example of where putting in a line return is not going to work, and it's going to be an area that you might be tempted to place one in. So now that we've all seen this, including me, working, let's go ahead and back that back up. Now, let's find a string somewhere.
All right.
Because this will not work.
Give me just a second. Actually, let me jump over to Room, because I believe Room has... There we go.
All right, so let's say that we ended up with a return string here that ended up so long that we wanted to go ahead and put in a return and then tab this over. You can already see that, whoa, the whole compiler just came to life. So now, well, go ahead and try to compile it. You're already going to get the errors you see down there. So new line in constant, a terminator expected, loads of errors. So like I said, you can't throw new lines everywhere. So go ahead and take that new line out. Now I'm going to show you another place where we are working with strings where we can do it. So come up here and let's say after each of these pluses, go ahead and do a new line. Tab that over, and then after the next plus, and then after the next plus.
And you'll notice that you generally have to line up the first one to match, but after that, Visual Studio actually picks up on what you're using for your tabbing. As you noticed, all the subsequent times I added a line return, it actually lined everything up along that line I started.
Precisely. And so in this particular case here, we've just taken and lined everything up. And right here is our terminator. So that's the actual end of our statement. So the idea is just to keep things as easy as possible to read. Now, in this particular case, that might look just a little bit cryptic. That's okay, though. I mean, the idea is to show you that you can get those new lines in there, those carriage returns. So, Logan, is there anything else you want to add to this?
Not right now, no. I mean, that's basically just giving a demonstration of the fact that, for one, Whitespace is, I would say, all but a requirement for making readable code as far as blocking things goes, where you're blocking things into a method or within a loop or any type of nested block.
Right.
And it's also useful for parameters or in any other case where you have a long line of code that you need to break up for readability's sake.
Exactly. So with that, hopefully, after this video, everybody will try to follow along by formatting their code. And if you post anything online, please try to use code tags. Keep your code formatted so that other people can take a look at what you're doing and help you out with any problems you may have quicker, because they can look at your code and understand it with ease as opposed to trying to mentally break everything up. And with that, that is going to wrap up this quick video on Whitespace. Thanks a lot.